Chapter 39. Secret Language. In the enveloping darkness, Shirley Young pulled out her spare flashlight, and with a beam of light, unveiled two figures seated beside the stone chest, dried-up mummies. The corpses had turned a deep brown, with one being an old man whose beard on his jaw was faintly discernible and wrapped in sheepskin. The other appeared to be a young child. They both sat cross-legged, seemingly guardians of the mysterious stone chest. Clearing my throat in relief, I warned Fatty, "Don't just casually shout about Zhongzi. You could scare someone to death. These two are practically turning to stone, probably dead for a couple of thousand years." Clearly, this was a burial chamber. Shirley Young shot me an angry look. "Nice. Old who? You think you can fool me? You two are unmistakably grave robbers." My heart skipped, thinking we hadn't slipped up. Had we? Could an American like her understand the term Zhongzi? Fortunately, Professor Chun was still out cold and wouldn't have heard, and Yi Sin seemed too dazed to catch our conversation. I quickly tried to clarify. "Haven't I told you? I'm just an amateur enthusiast of feng shui and astrology, not a tomb raider. Stop tarnishing our reputations. Back home, Fatty and I are known to be good guys. I served as a soldier, and Fatty was recognized as a model worker and Women's Day standard bearer." Fatty, realizing my error, tried to correct it while also trying to change the subject. Don't listen to his nonsense. He was the Women's Day standard bearer, not me. I was part of the youth commando. It's an honor and all thanks to the party and the people. But look at this stone chest. Isn't it odd? What do you think it was used for? However, Shirley Young didn't pick up on our attempt to switch topics. Instead, she suddenly said something cryptic. "A stable dish hangs 1,000 gold. The high trigram responds. Grapple with the hook, kick the pole, pour into the inverted urn. Yuan Liang, the moon's recruitment is far. The colorful bag won't hang." Her words seemed nonsensical to others, but I understood them clearly. These were the lips codes of the tomb robbing business. Just as the underworld has its own lingo, so do we in our hidden professions. Opening a card means trafficking women, carrying the green refers to smuggling goods, and moving the rock denotes child trafficking. In our tomb raiding industry, we also have our own set of rules and encrypted language, which facilitates communication among peers. Back during the Republic era, my grandfather specialized in finding locations for ancestral burial grounds and treasure sites, one of the nationally renowned feng shui masters of his time. He was also acquainted with a knowledgeable touch gold captain, an expert of this trade. So I'm all too familiar with these codes, even more so than my hometown dialect. The few coded phrases Shirley Young recited to me roughly meant, "You have a sly mind and don't speak the truth. I can tell you're a seasoned expert in tomb raiding, and these things can't escape my eyes." Caught off guard by her sudden questioning and not having pondered deeply, I, used to being called a master among peers, responded humbly without thinking. "There is no Yuan Liang here, only wood carriers on the mountain and fire setters below. I dare to ask this esteemed Yuan Liang, where have you ever divided the scales of a pangolin or unraveled the paths of the Chiu gates?" Shirley Young continued, "A river has sights on both banks. Whether carrying wood on the mountain or setting fire below, a partridge divides the pangolin scales, while a hawk solves the Chiu gates. How often have you entered the Hall of Treasures, seeking the Dragon Pavilion in vain?" I was shocked and regretful, having seemingly played right into the hands of this American. Didn't I just admit to being a tomb raider? Yet, it was rather extraordinary. Those extensive codes of the trade were scarcely understood before the liberation and considered lost thereafter. Even half-professional tomb raiders like Goldtooth's father only knew a few terms. It was beyond my imagination for such specialized lingo to be uttered by a young American woman. Could it really be that she was a fellow practitioner? According to her coded language, Shirley Yang's skills were passed down from her ancestors, but she didn't know how to read feng shui or locate the veins vital to our trade. No, this could not be admitted. I had to continue playing dumb, so I said, "These lines are from a poem we learned in elementary school." Who would have thought American elementary school textbooks could be so uniquely similar? Seeing that I was stubbornly evasive, Shirley Young let it go. "Never mind. This isn't the place to talk. If we can make it back alive, I hope to have a serious conversation with you. I felt as if I'd been granted an amnesty, hastily rising to search for a way out, thinking to myself, if I make it out, I'll make sure she can't find me. I might as well go back to my hometown and stop loitering around Beijing. But then another thought struck me. No, she hasn't paid us yet. What could her intentions be? It's not likely she's fallen for me, as Fatty suggested, or planning to report us. Is it possible that her ancestors were touch gold captains too? If so, that would make us a match? Lost in my wild speculations, Fatty and Shirley, but then another thought struck me. No, she hasn't paid us yet. What could her intentions be? It's not likely she's fallen for me, as Fatty suggested, or planning to report us. Is it possible that her ancestors were touch gold captains too? If so, that would make us a match? Had already made a few rounds in the small tomb chamber. There were tiny cracks in the ceiling and all around, but they were too small to offer any escape. At that moment, Professor Chen abruptly awoke, his mind unclear. He would alternate between crying and laughing, no longer recognizing anyone around him. Lacking medicine or medical expertise, we were helpless to do anything but let him be in his confused state. Eventually, our attention returned to the large stone chest situated between the two desiccated corpses. Whatever burial treasures it might contain were of no use to us now, as we faced our imminent demise. Fatty tapped on the chest and mused, I wonder which poor souls are buried in this tiny chamber. Aside from sheepskin, there aren't any decent burial items to speak of. I doubt there's anything valuable inside. Shirley Yang, examining the carvings on the chest, suddenly looked up and addressed me. Do you remember what I mentioned about the records of the western regions of the Great Tang? It spoke of Zaglama Mountain. I replied, yes, I remember. It was described as a sacred mountain, the burial site of two sages. But it's unlikely to be these two here, one old and one young. This chamber is too rudimentary for sages of their stature. I wanted to continue, to say that I had seen many ancient tombs and that, according to feng shui, burying people in the belly of a stone mountain wasn't proper, especially if there was a fierce shaft below, but I stopped myself, not wanting to reveal too much about my background. Shirley Yang clarified, these are not the sages. This child may have been a disciple, a sun-like figure referred to as a seer, and the elderly figure, his servant. Curious, I pressed, how do you know this? Does the carvings on the chest tell you so? What else is depicted there? Shirley Yang beckoned Fatty and me to take a closer look at the chest. These carvings represent an ancient prophecy. The composition is simple, and the symbols quite distinct. I think I can understand some of it. Intrigued, I asked, what does the prophecy say? Does it mention where the hidden passage in this chamber might be? Shirley Yang shook her head. No, it doesn't. And the prophecy doesn't seem accurate. The seer claimed that after his death, nobody would come to this tomb until the day when 4 people would open the chest by chance. Fatty counted, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 of us here. Does Professor Chin's madness mean he's no longer considered a person? It seems this seer wasn't so precise, likely just a charlatan. I looked at the others and suggested, if the seer isn't a fraud, this prophecy might not be about us. However, there's another possibility. One of us might not be human.